Weak. That's the word they whispered when I walked into the room. Not quietly enough, though. I heard it echo against the marble walls like a curse. My heels clicked across the floor. Too loud, too confident, and every man at that table turned to look. My father's empire, his money, his soldiers, his legacy, now had me standing in his place, and that alone was enough to make them angry. The table was long, carved from dark mahogany. My father's seat sat at the head of it, empty now. The smell of his cigar still lingered, mixing with the scent of gun oil and expensive whiskey. He'd ruled this world with fear. I was expected to disappear into it. Miss Valeria, one of them said, Dominic, my father's former enforcer, with his fake sympathy and hidden knife. This isn't the kind of business a woman should handle. Maybe it's best we finish that sentence, I said, not raising my voice. I dare you. He froze. Everyone did. My hands were shaking under the table, but I didn't let them see. My father always said fear wasn't something you killed, it was something you learned to make your weapon. I smiled. A quiet, dangerous smile. I may not have built this empire, I said, but I know how to burn it down. The room went silent. You could hear the ice melt in their glasses, and then, from the shadows, he spoke. Lucian Vale. My father's right-hand man. He'd been with my father longer than I'd been alive. A soldier, a strategist, and the kind of man who never needed to raise his voice to make people listen. He leaned against the wall. Black suit, darker eyes. Watching me. Studying. He didn't move when others did. Didn't even blink. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, too quiet. You want to lead, Valeria? Then prove you can survive your own men. The words sliced through the room like a blade. The others exchanged glances, some smirking, others waiting for me to break. But I didn't. I stood tall, even though my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. I don't need to survive them, I said, locking eyes with him. I need them to survive me. For the first time, I saw it, the faintest smirk ghost across his face. Not approval, not admiration. Something colder, challenge, and I realized something that night. Lucian Vale wasn't testing me for them. He was testing me for himself, because in his world, respect wasn't handed down, it was earned in blood, and I was ready to spill some. The first lesson Lucian taught me wasn't how to fight, it was how to stand still. Power, he said, circling me in the old warehouse where my father once trained his men, isn't always about movement. Sometimes it's the silence that makes them tremble. His footsteps echoed on the concrete, sharp and deliberate. My heart was racing, not from fear, but from anger. Anger that I needed him. Anger that he was right. He stopped in front of me, his dark eyes fixed on mine. Do you know why they don't respect you? Because I'm a woman. I shot back. He tilted his head slightly. No. Because you keep reminding them that you are. That stung. He moved closer, his voice low. Stop proving you're not weak. Start proving you're inevitable. That night, he put a gun in my hand. My father's gun. The metal was cold, heavy, like it carried his ghost. Pull the trigger, Lucian said. At what? I asked. He nodded toward a glass bottle on the table. At your fear. I didn't blink. I fired. The bottle shattered, glass and fire bursting into the night. Lucian's lips curved slightly. Now we're getting somewhere. The training didn't stop there. Days turned into weeks. He taught me how to command, how to make a room listen without raising my voice, how to read a man's weakness before he even opened his mouth. Every word, every glance between us felt like a test. Sometimes I passed, sometimes I bled, but I learned fast. The men who once called me princess started calling me boss. Not because they wanted to, but because Lucian made them. He never praised me. Not once. But every time I met his gaze, I could see it. The faint spark of respect he refused to say out loud. And maybe that's why I couldn't stop thinking about him. One night, after a brutal meeting that ended with blood on the floor and silence in the air, I found him on the rooftop of the estate, cigarette between his fingers. You enjoyed that, he said without turning. I stepped beside him, the city lights burning beneath us. They finally listened. They feared you, he corrected. Isn't that the same thing? He glanced at me then, and for the first time his voice softened. Fear fades. Control doesn't. Something about the way he said it, low, certain, made me forget to breathe. I asked quietly, "And what controls you, Lucian?" He looked down at the glowing city, then back at me, the memory of what I couldn't protect. For a moment I saw it, the crack in his armor, the ghost in his eyes, and I hated how much I wanted to reach for it. After that night, everything changed. He started showing up at my office unannounced, hovering in the shadows, always watching. When another gang tried to challenge my rule, he was the first to spill blood for me. Swift, silent, loyal. But loyalty comes with a price. One night, during another storm of threats and power plays, he cornered me in my father's old office. The same room where my father used to sit, the same room where I claimed my throne. "You can't keep doing this," he said, stepping closer. "Doing what?" "Playing queen without realizing who's still pulling the strings." I glared at him. "If that's your way of saying you're in control." He grabbed my wrist, firm but not cruel. "No, Valeria. I'm saying the moment you start believing you don't need control, you'll lose everything." Our faces were inches apart. His voice was calm, but his eyes, they burned. And for the first time, I saw it. The desire he'd been fighting. The one I'd been denying. We stood there, both of us breathing the same air, both of us too proud to admit what was happening. "You think I'm afraid of you?" I whispered. He smiled faintly. "No. You're afraid of becoming me." And maybe he was right, because the more I ruled, the more I saw pieces of Lucian in myself. The calm ruthlessness, the hunger for power, the need for control. But unlike him, I wasn't hiding from it. I was embracing it. By the end of that month, the empire that once doubted me was kneeling. The men who called me weak were gone, some fired, some buried, and through it all, Lucian stood beside me, silent, watching, like a shadow I couldn't shake. But I didn't realize then that shadows don't follow you forever. Sometimes they lead you straight into the dark. It happened on a Tuesday night, the kind of night that felt too quiet, the kind that whispered that something had already gone wrong. I was going through the week's security reports when I saw it as signatured Lucian's. On a transaction that should have never existed, to deal with Dante Moretti, my father's oldest rival. The same man responsible for the bullet that ended his life. At first, I thought it was forged. Then I saw the footage. Lucian. My Lucian. Standing across from Moretti, shaking his hand like a man sealing a promise with the devil himself. I didn't breathe for almost a full minute. It wasn't anger at first. It was disbelief. He couldn't have. Not him. Not after everything. But the truth doesn't care about love or loyalty. It just burns. That night, when Lucian walked into my office like nothing was wrong, I didn't even look up. He stood by the door, silent, reading me like he always did. "You found out," he said finally, and my fingers tightened around the glass of whiskey in my hand. "So, it's true." He didn't deny it, didn't even try. "I made a deal to keep you safe," he said. "Moretti wanted the docs. I gave them to him in exchange for your life." I laughed. It came out broken. "My life doesn't need your permission to exist." He stepped closer, voice low. "Valeria, you were surrounded by men who wanted your head on a silver platter. You were too busy proving yourself to see the knives behind you." "And you?" I asked quietly. "Were you one of them?" That made him stop. Just for a second. Enough to tell me the truth he couldn't say. "I warned you once," he said softly. "Power isn't given to women like you. It's taken. And sometimes it has to be protected from itself." I looked up at him. The man who had taught me how to be feared, how to be cold. Now he stood there, pretending betrayal was mercy. "Don't twist this into some kind of noble act," I said. "You didn't protect me. You controlled me." He stepped forward, his voice rough now, his restraint cracking. "I kept you alive when every man in this room wanted you dead. You think you're queen now? You're sitting on a throne I built with my blood." I stood. Calm. Dangerous. "No, Lucian," I said, my voice steady as ice. "I'm sitting on a throne you never thought I could keep without you. His jaw tightened. He looked at me like a man staring at the fire he started. Too late to stop it. Too proud to look away. That night, I made my choice. I called a meeting. Every soldier, every captain, every loyalist to my father. And when Lucian entered that room, he didn't know it would be his last time walking in as my ally. I stood at the head of the table, my father's chair, and placed the documents of his betrayal in the center. Every signature, every transfer, every lie, gasps, murmurs, then silence. Lucian didn't flinch. He just looked at me, like he already knew how this story would end. You taught me everything, I said, my voice calm. How to hold power, how to use fear, how to never show mercy. I picked up his gun, the same one he taught me to shoot with. So tonight, teacher, I'm returning the lesson.
He didn't beg.
Didn't move. He just gave me that same cold, unreadable stare and whispered, "You've become everything your father wanted." I raised the gun. "No," I said, "I became everything you feared." And I pulled the trigger. Silence followed. Then the sound of the city outside, sirens, wind, the heartbeat of power shifting hands. When it was over, I sat in my father's chair and looked at the ashes of everything I'd once trusted. Lucian's body was gone by morning. No one knew who moved it. Maybe I didn't want to know. All I knew was that he had been right about one thing. Power doesn't ask for permission, and I wasn't asking anymore. The morning after Lucian's death, I didn't cry, not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't. When you've been betrayed by the only person you trusted, tears feel like weakness. And weakness, in this world, gets you killed. The city didn't pause for him. Ashford kept moving, its streets humming with the same chaos my father once ruled. But I could feel it in the air. The shift, a woman was sitting on the throne now, and she wasn't asking to be accepted. She was claiming what was hers. The first thing I did was change the rules, and more loyalty through fear, and more silence through blood. My father ruled by terror. Lucian ruled through control, but I would rule through consequence. Every man who had once whispered weak behind my back now spoke my name with caution, like it might burn their tongues, and maybe it did, because I made examples out of betrayal. I didn't scream, I didn't threaten, I acted. Point one night, I called a meeting with the heads of every territory. When they arrived, I served wine, smiled politely, and told them the new order of things. From now on, I said, my voice steady, loyalty won't be measured by words, but by results. One of them smirked. And if we fail, Queen Valeria? I smiled. Then you'll meet your new god, efficiency. He didn't laugh. No one did. That was the night they finally understood. I wasn't my father's daughter anymore. I was his replacement. But power changes you, even when you think you're ready. Every night, when the city went quiet, I'd find myself in that same rooftop where Lucian once stood. Sometimes, I could still smell his cigarette smoke. He used to say, "Fear fades. Control doesn't." And now, I understood what he meant. I had both, fear and control, but they didn't feel like victory. They felt like chains made of gold, because when you build an empire out of ashes, every crown burns a little. 3 months later, word reached me. Whispers from the docks. Someone was rebuilding in the shadows. Someone who knew our systems, our codes, our secrets. At first, I thought it was just another rival. Then I saw the name signed on a deal that mirrored Lucian's old signature. I froze to know. It couldn't be. Lucian Vale was dead. I had pulled the trigger myself, but power has a strange way of resurrecting those who refuse to stay buried. And if he was alive, then everything I'd built was standing on borrowed time. That night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, the woman everyone now called the Queen of Ashes, the red lipstick, the black suit, the steel in my eyes. All of it looked like power. But deep down, I wasn't thinking about empires or enemies. I was thinking about him. The man who made me strong enough to kill him. The man who might still be alive to destroy me. And for the first time in months, I felt it again. That same fire he once taught me to control. Only this time, it wasn't feared. It was war. They called him a rumored, a shadow walking through the underworld of Ashford. But I knew better. Rumors don't breathe. Rumors don't bleed. Rumors don't leave the same kind of silence that Lucian Vale always did. He was alive, and the city, my city, felt it before I even saw him. Deals started shifting. Men I'd once owned began moving differently. Quietly. Like someone had reminded them what fear truly felt like. Lucian was not haunting me. He was rebuilding. It was 2 a.m. when I saw him. Rain pouring over the rooftop where he once taught me to stand still. I had returned there again. Maybe to feel something. Maybe to remind myself why I'd started all of this. And there he was, standing by the edge, cigarette in hand, like the past hadn't been buried in bullets and blood. For a moment, my body froze. I didn't even reach for my gun. I just watched him, rain dripping from his hair, smoke curling around him like sin that refused to die. He turned slowly, his eyes finding mine through the storm. You didn't think it'd be that easy, did you? My throat tightened, but I didn't let my voice shake. You should be dead. He stepped closer, every movement deliberate. I was. For a while. Until the men who buried me realized ghosts are bad for business. His smirk was the same, dangerous, calm, confident, the kind that made me remember why I had ever let him close enough to hurt me. I built this city again, I said coldly. Without you. Without anyone. He nodded slowly. I noticed. Impressive. But tell me, Valeria. He leaned in, his voice dropping like a blade. Do they follow you because they fear you, or because they still fear me? The words sliced deep. He wanted to shake me. He wanted to see if the girl he trained was still alive under the queen I'd become. I smiled instead. Keep talking like that, Lucian. Maybe I'll kill you properly this time. He chuckled, soft, dark, amused. You could have killed me once. You didn't. I pulled the trigger. He stepped even closer until I could feel the heat of him through the cold rain. You aimed for the heart, Valeria, but you missed. For a moment, the city disappeared. It was just us, standing in the rain, 2 people too scarred to be lovers, too proud to be enemies. Why come back? I asked finally. You want revenge? He shook his head. No. I want to see what kind of empire my betrayal built. He brushed his thumb across my jaw, like old habits never die, and maybe, he added quietly, to remind you who taught you to wear that crown. I stepped back. You don't get to claim my crown, Lucian. You lost that right the moment you betrayed me. He smiled faintly. Betrayal is a matter of perspective. You became powerful because of it. And you became a ghost because of it. Maybe that's what it takes to make a queen, a ghost to haunt her. He turned to leave. Where are you going? I demanded. He looked back once, eyes calm, voice unreadable. You'll find me when you're ready to stop ruling and start living. And then he was gone, swallowed by the rain, by the city, by the very shadows he once trained me to command. That night, I stood alone again. But this time, it felt different, because now I knew something I hadn't before. You can kill a man. You can bury the past, but you can't kill what you became because of him, and maybe that's what haunted me most. Not that Lucian was alive, but that a part of me came back to life with him. The storm that brought Lucian back never left. It moved through Ashford. Like smoke, curling into every deal, every whispered threat, every sleepless night. And I knew what was coming. There's always a war after a resurrection. It wasn't fired by me or by him. It came from a street corner in the South Docks. One of my men, one of his ghosts. Within hours, the city split in 2. Half swore loyalty to their Queen of Ashes, half to the man they still called the King's Shadow. I didn't flinch. I drew maps, made lists, burned old bridges, but every move I made, he'd already predicted. Every trap I set, he walked through like he'd built it himself. Lucian wasn't fighting for the Empire. He was fighting for me, and that terrified me more than death itself. He asked to meet in the ruins of the old cathedral, neutral ground, where my father once made peace with his enemies. When I walked in, the candles flickered against the cracked walls, and Lucian stood there in the half-light, unarmed. You brought soldiers? He asked. Of course, I said. You taught me never to trust anyone. He smiled, the same quiet smile that once made me forget everything else. I taught you that trust is a weapon. You just learned how to use it better than I ever did. I stepped closer, voice steady. This ends tonight. One empire. One ruler. Then rule, he said. If that's all you came for. No, I whispered. I came for truth. He told me everything, how he'd made that first deal with Moretti not to betray me, but to protect my inheritance until I was strong enough to take it, how he'd faked his death because the men who served my father would never follow a woman while he still breathed. He'd vanished to let me rise. I had to make you hate me, he said. It's the only way you'd stop needing me. I didn't cry, I just stood there, staring at the man who destroyed me to save me. Do you expect me to thank you? I asked. No, he said softly. Just to understand. Outside, gunfire cracked. Our armies colliding for the last time. Inside, it was only us. Two weapons forged from the same fire. Lucian stepped closer. End it, Valeria. The city's yours. Always was. He reached for his gun, placed it on the altar between us. My fingers brushed the metal. Cold. Familiar. He closed his eyes. Waiting, I could have killed him. I should have. Instead, I lowered the gun. No more ashes, I said. Not tonight. He opened his eyes. Relief, regret, and something like pride. Then he walked past me into the chaos outside, vanishing into the war he'd started. The war I would finish by dawn. The gunfire stopped. My banner flew over the city again. Black and gold. The colors of rebirth. And no one asked where Lucian had gone. And no one dared. I in the papers. They called me the Queen of Ashes. Did I in the streets? They called me Mother of Fire. But behind every title was one truth. You can inherit power. You can learn to command it, but only by losing everything do you deserve it. They said I was too weak to rule. They were right once, but weakness taught me hunger. Betrayal taught me strategy. And love taught me how to burn without turning to ash. That I don't wear my father's crown, I forged my own. If you made it this far, you've walked through fire with her. Comment Queen of Ashes if you believe she earned her throne. Comment Lucian Lives if you think love still has a chance. Don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to Mafia Hearts for more stories of love, power, and betrayal. Because on Mafia Hearts, every love story burns before it blooms.